Okay.
Maybe I can briefly introduce the project and then I will give floor to Carolina, who will be our presenter today. So welcome everybody. My name is Aleksandra Czurko. I work at the Polish Humanitarian Action. I'm the program coordinator for South Sudan. And today we would like to present to you our project that we work on in a bigger consortium. And Bio4HUMAN is a project which is funded by the European Union, and it aims to assess how appropriate and practical are the bio-based solutions that we identified for solid waste management in different humanitarian contexts and communities, as well as the challenges associated with their use. And this is a purely research project, and currently we focus on understanding real-life conditions that may enable or hinder the application of these solutions. So within this project, we are not implementing these solutions, only gathering and analyzing the information that we gathered. And I think now I can give the floor to Karolina Szablewski from WeLOOP, who is our partner in the project. And Carolina will present on life cycle assessment in the context of environmental impacts of humanitarian organizations. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat or raise your hand and we can take the questions after the presentation. Over to you, Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aleksandra. So thank you all for your participation already. So this webinar is, as Aleksandra presented, is related to the bio-based packaging solutions. I'm here with Perrine, that is also from WeLOOP and worked also in the LCA part, so life cycle assessment of Bio4HUMAN project. So just sorry. So as Aleksandra said, so this webinar will be recorded. So during the event, if you have any questions, your video and mics can be open and ask your questions. But please mute yourself during the presentation so you don't have any issues. So if you have any questions, you can also ask anytime in the chat. And we have at the end of the presentation also a session of question and answers. After the presentation, we will be placing the recording in our website in bio4human.eu. So we'll send also, I'll ask Aleksandra to send you an email with the links for this registration. And if you want to stay in contact and informed about the project, you can follow us in the social media, LinkedIn, there is also Instagram, and subscribe to our newsletter. So I don't know if Aleksandra, you are adding people. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So the agenda of this webinar is a quick introduction to the project. So the European project. We also focus on PLA. PLA is a bio-based plastic and its environmental impact. We focus on this bio-based plastic because it's one of the sources of the main packagings that we analyzed in the Bio4HUMAN. We do also this geographic analysis, a case study, and we have these conclusions and question and answers at the end. So some questions that we want to answer. The first one is, what's a bio-based material? So there is a difference between a bio-based, so it's coming from agriculture, products, and fossil-based material that is coming from the petroleum. So who has ever used the bio-based product? Why did you choose the solution? Did you already use it internally? So this is
Karina, you're muted for some reason. Maybe somebody clicked by accident.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So until when did you hear me? So maybe I will start it again. So in this webinar, we will focus on this difference between bio-based material and fossil materials. So the bio-based is really coming from what is agriculture, and the fossil-based materials coming from the petroleum. We will discuss a lot about the solutions, the bio-based solutions. If you have already used it, if you have any challenges using solutions, bio-based solutions, which challenges, I think this is the most rich discussion that we can have. And if you do have some advantages or disadvantages of using bio-based products compared to the fossil-based ones. So the Bio4HUMAN, as Alexander said, it's an European project, it's a research project that has been funded by the Horizon Europe. It started in January 2024 and it ends in June 2026. The project entire name, so it's identifying bio-based solutions for waste management applicable to the humanitarian sector. So that's our discoveries for the life cycle assessment that we are presenting for you today. We have 10 partners, partners that are really multi-stakeholders. We are at WeLOOP experts in LCA and life cycle costing, but we have also the humanitarian aid, the people in need, and PAH. We have also experts in the bio-based materials with EMPLAS and the ITENE. We have Perceives, Inspired that are our coordinator, and Universidad Cantabria, that's also a university working with the technologies and solutions for the end of life. So I hope I didn't forget anyone. So the objectives of the project is really to assess the scope to which bio-based innovative technological solutions and bio-based systems have the potential to be applied under the humanitarian context. So we will define, and we have already done, the needs of the humanitarian sector and assess the scope of the different bio-based innovative technological solutions and systems. And from the point of view of life cycle assessment, we'll do the assessment of the solutions of the packagings, and also map the process of different methodologies that could be used to assess the bio-based solutions and also technologies. So the other part of the project is really related to the socioeconomic and governance aspects, and also the replication potential. So this is work package 6 that is under development, is still in this month. So we are doing the evaluation of social and economic and governance aspects of the bio-based solutions that have been identified, and we are conducting the feasibility study for theoretically proposed solutions. So the Bio4HUMAN project is focusing 2 case studies, one in the DRC and one in South Sudan. And at the end, the ideal is to develop guidelines and recommendations for policymakers, for bio-based sector actors, but also for humanitarian aid practitioners and, of course, the scientific community. So I'll let now the floor to Perrine to present you the challenges and the solutions. Thank you.
Yes. So what we have done here in WeLOOP for the Bio4HUMAN project is mainly to go through a life cycle assessment of the solutions that were identified throughout the project. And so first, we wanted to see with you, like, what is life cycle assessment and what is done within such a study. So life cycle assessment is a standardized assessment method. So it's normalized and it's really well standardized. And so to evaluate environmental impacts based on a multi-criteria approach and a multi-stage analysis over the entire life cycle of a product, a service, or something like that. So what we mean by multi-criteria is that often we think about climate change as a criteria, how much carbon dioxide is sent back to the atmosphere, but there are also other environmental indicators, such as how much water do we use, do we have emissions of particulate matter that can also hinder the environment, and something like that. So the goal of doing a life cycle assessment is to know and to be able to compare the environmental impacts of a system throughout its entire life cycle. So from extraction and processing of the raw materials through the use of the products, and we go even as far as the end of life. And in the base case, we also study the impact of recycling. Here, for the Bio4HUMAN project, we tried to analyze what is the life cycle of humanitarian aid. Sorry. First, as you can see, we have the extraction of the raw materials. So we have, for example, for packaging products, we have as raw material, we have petroleum and plastic, the production of plastic. And then these products are given to local communities that are local communities. Then they are used locally. And once they are used, they need to be thrown away. So we either have some waste collection, and this waste goes into a landfill. But also what we've seen from the study is that the waste produced after humanitarian aid often end up in open dumps or are open burned. In the case of open dump and of landfill, we have leakage of these wastes into nature, and they are scattered around the environment, and this causes a few problems that you might know. So we also have, in some cases, we can have compost of the waste, and also sometimes recycling. So Bio4HUMAN focused solutions focused on the production of the raw materials, because we tried to see if bio-based materials could be interesting instead of petroleum-based materials. And also we tried to see how to diminish the impacts at end of life to have less local impacts after humanitarian aid. So to present to you what we have done, we wanted to present to you the impacts of PLA, because PLA is a bio-based plastic, which is polylactic acid, and is based on the production of lactic acid, which comes from the fermentation of sugar. And this sugar can come from starch and so on. So it can come from various biotic resources. This bio-based plastic is the most common one, so it's produced all around the world, and so it dominates the bio-based plastics market. It can be made from corn, from sugarcane, or from organic waste. So it's a good solution to be. Also, it could be also a solution to treat the waste, organic waste, and to transform it into a valuable product, such as packaging. Also, the advantages of this plastic is that it has also versatile shaping. We can find it in forms of bottles, in forms of mosquito nets, different types of bags. So it can be adapted to different problematics. So also an advantage of PLA is that at end of life, it is biodegradable in certain conditions. So here, for instance, we present an industrial compost. Indeed, the PLA cannot be posted anywhere in nature. It needs certain conditions of temperature and humidity, which can be achieved in an industrial compost. And also, this industrial compost allows microbial activity and also treats the PLA together with other organic waste, which is going to help the biodegradability of the PLA. So this industrial compost type of setups has already been done in various places, just such as what you can see here on the right in Ghana. So this is what's interesting about PLA. So here I'm going to go a bit deeper in the life cycle assessment of this material. So PLA can be based on various bio-based material, and depending on the biotic resource it is based on, the impact of its production can vary a bit.
Because it is my role.
If you okay, so this variation shows that PLA can be more or less environmentally impactful, but we can see on the two bars on the right. How do we say it? Bar histogram. Yeah.
This chart.
Yeah, on this chart, the two column at the left, sorry, that PLA was studied based on the production based on maize and also based on sugarcane. We can see that we have different impacts between both of these PLA, but then depending on the local constraints and resource availability, one can be more interesting than another. Also, this PLA, as I said, can be made from bio-waste. And here, depending on the bio-waste type, the production yield of PLA can be more or less interesting. And then we can have variable impacts because we are going to need more or less energy, for instance, to dry the waste or to shred it. And something like that can really make the environmental impact more or less important. Then we can see also that PLA can be recycled. So it's PLA which is like it's the fifth and sixth column. And here, when PLA is recycled, we have less impacts, and it's a really viable solution. And it's a great advantage of PLA is that it can be recycled rather simply. So it's a great advantage of this material. Then we presented also the environmental impacts of PHBV, which is also another bio-based plastic, and it has similar impacts to PLA. So it's less common, but it's also an option that can be used for packaging materials, for instance. And it stays as interesting in terms of environmental impact. And then you can see in the last two columns, these are the impacts of two petroleum-based plastics. So you can see between PET and PE, we have different environmental impacts. But here we rely on fossil resources, and it's so it's less advantageous, and it's better to rely on bio-based biotic resources. Here in our analysis, we have tried to see where the environmental impacts came from. And so the environmental impacts of the agricultural activities to produce maize or sugarcane can be quite important. And also the impacts of energy consumption. that can be important because we need to dry the products, and then the synthesis of the lactic acid can be quite energy. I'm trying to find my word.
We use high energy.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes we need also to use some chemicals that can be harmful to the environment. So this is the impact of PLA, and we also try to look at other indicators. So we try to see specifically the impacts of microplastics on the ecosystems. So microplastics are when a plastic is left in nature and degrades, it degrades into particulates, and it can have different impacts on the environment and then can be quite helpful. So first, these microplastics can cover surfaces and then prevent the development of certain plants and hinder the ecosystem. They also carry bacteria. And these impacts depend on the type of plastics that is scattered, because it depends on the size of these microplastics, on the shape, and on the rate of the degradation of the plastic, and the weight of the plastic, whether it sedimentates or not. So, so here, what we have seen is that PLA, if it goes into a compost, has less impact because it will degrade properly into nature and release less microplastics than polyethylene or PET that are usually used in packaging nowadays, which do not biodegrade and then create a lot of microplastics and have negative impact on the environment. Also, bio-based materials have a great advantage is that they contain carbon, just like any plastic, but this carbon comes from the atmosphere. So what happens is that as it's bio-based, it's based on plants, and the plant, when it's growing through photosynthesis, it absorbs CO2 and water to create its sugar and its starch, and also it releases oxygen. So the composition of the plant is based on carbon that comes from the atmosphere. So we have a temporary carbon storage within the plant, and then as we form a plastic based on this plant, we have a temporary storage of CO2 thanks to the bio-based packagings. And that's one of the great part of the bio-based materials. So if you have maybe any question on the environmental impact of PLA, you're welcome, because next we're going to go deeper on another point of view, another part. If you have any questions, don't hesitate.
Otherwise, we can continue and
yes,
the question
we can
at the end.
continue. If you don't hesitate also to put questions in the chat. We will read them at the end. So now I'm going to focus on another part of the packaging materials. It's their shaping. So when we shape a packaging, we use energy. And this is responsible for a great part of the impact of one plastic. So here, what's important to see also is what is the influence of the energy mix. So within the Bio4HUMAN project, we focused on 2 countries, namely the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. So we tried to see between these 2 countries what could be the difference of impacts if, for instance, the plastic was produced locally from bio-waste, for instance. And here we see that in South Sudan, the source of electricity mainly comes from fuel, from diesel, and at almost 94%, and the other part comes from solar energy. So as you can see below, the electricity mix impact here, we have much more impact for the production of electricity in South Sudan than we have in DRC, where they mostly rely on hydro energy. So that's one thing that we have analyzed. And also we want to see, sometimes we also often heat is needed. And the heat in South Sudan comes at 74% from oil burning, and the remaining percentage comes from biogas burning. So the heat impact is rather high because we're going to have emissions of particulate and so on. And so it might have important impacts on the environment. So what we want to highlight here is that depending on the location also of the plastic you procure, we have different environmental impacts associated to the packaging. So whether it's done, for instance, in South Sudan or in DRC, the impacts might differ a lot. So this is something to consider when you choose also your packaging and even your procurement for different types of item, and it's also on a larger scale. Like depending on the country, you might taking a look at what's the source of energy can be interesting. But also, it's always good to source locally. But this is something to keep in mind. So based on this, also the PLA that is made from maize, from sugarcane, or from bio-waste can come from different parts of the world. So there are also different electricity mix and energy mix that is used. But here we highlight, depending on the types of PLA, what are the impact categories that are most affected by the production of this PLA. You can see in the process contribution column which steps of the PLA production has most impact. For instance, when we produce PLA from maize, the maize production, the agriculture of part of the process has a lot of impacts on the overall environmental impact, and so do the use of electricity and heat. So here, for instance, we've drawn from that a few recommendations, such as when you choose this type of PLA, it's interesting to check if the supply country does not have issues of water supply, because that's the impact of the agriculture part of maize production. And also to prefer countries with a low impact grid mix if you have a choice. But then again, there's other things to consider than this. And so we've drawn this recommendation for 4 types of biotic resources. And this can be a quick guideline in case you have a choice, and direct contact with your suppliers to see how you can have more sustainable PLA. Then we move on to a case study on how PLA can be used in packaging. And with the case study, we talk about the pouches for ready-to-use therapeutic food, or RUTF. And so this is one of the solutions that was selected by the Bio4HUMAN consortium to be analyzed. Because so these pouches are made from PLA, metallized cellulose, and cellophane. So they are bio-based, and they are tight and against moisture, sunlight, and oxygen. So it's a really good type of container for different types of food. So based on that, so we've analyzed if it could fit the humanitarian aid constraints. So as you can see, it's a bit higher, and it's the same price more or less as the reference, which can be petroleum based. It's also a single-use product and has the same shelf life as the conventional product that is usually used. So 2 years shelf life. But the great thing about this solution is that it's bio-based, but also 100% biodegradable and compostable at end of life. So it will prevent the leakage issues that are usually caused by the conventional products. So here, this is an example of our study, LCA study. So on the left, you have the environmental impacts over the life cycle of a petroleum-based pouch for RUTF. And in comparison, you have on the right the same analysis, but for the bio-based compostable bag for RUTF. You can see here that what's in encadré,
Box.
comme on dit.
The box.
Yeah, the box in pink. You can see the impacts due to production of the different pouch layers. And we can see that for the bio-based product, we have higher impacts due to the production of these layers. But then when we look at the end of life at the right of each diagram, we have less impacts at end of life. And this is where we want to have lesser impacts, because it limits the impact locally, so where the pouch will actually be used. So in South Sudan, for instance. So here, if we analyze more thoroughly with the different environmental impact categories, we have the main type of impacts. So we have particulate emission, we have impacts on climate change, we use a lot of fossil resources, but this is due also to the use of energy to have a metallized type of pouch, as you can see on the picture. But what's really important about this is that the main difference is that we have the diminution of the impacts at end of life are reduced, and that's what we were seeking. Also, we wanted to underline another study that we have. It's based on sanitary pads. So we have selected in the Bio4HUMAN consortium, we have selected a solution of bio-based pads and biodegradable. So here we have in this biodegradable solution, we can have, as you see here, a starch biopolymer. So it's a type of plastic that is bio-based, and then organic cotton that compose the pad. Whereas in the petroleum-based solutions, we had mainly polypropylene that constituted the pad. And so, as we can see here, we can see that for the end of life of the reference pad was most important was a hotspot for this petroleum-based pads. But in the end, if for the solution, which is bio-based, the main impacts come from the cultivation of cotton, but the impacts are end of life are way less important. So this is a great solution also to diminish impacts at end of life and locally. You have here also a few remarks about the microplastics effect, which you can see on the left for the reference. It's at 364. It's a number that represents the impact on biodiversity of these microplastics. And as we are biodegradable in the case of our solution, there is no impact on the ecosystems at end of life due to microplastic. And also we have, thanks to the fact that the solution is bio-based, we have this carbon temporary storage that can be also advantageous. We also thought it was relevant to see, okay, here we have the impacts of pads that are single use, but we can see a lot these days the reusable pads. And these reusable pads have a difference with the single-use one is that they also have a use phase. So we need to wash them every time we've used them, but they have a greater lifespan. And so the production part takes less importance. So at the bottom, you can see the impacts of using pads over 1 year. So the first scenario that you can see here is the scenario where you use a single-use pads that is petroleum-based. Then you have the second scenario where you use single-use bio-based pads. So we figured that we used 240 pads per year. And then on the right, you can see if we use an equivalent of 2 reusable pads in 1 year. So in 1 year, and also the use phase is included in these impacts. And we can see that indeed using reusable pads can really reduce the overall environmental impacts of the pads. But then, of course, there is other things to take into consideration, because reusable pads means that we have access to water and soap and to sanitary conditions, which is not always the case. So single-use pads will always be useful anyway.
Just a compliment here.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to say that all the data that has been used in the assessment is generic data, meaning that, for example, here for the solution, bio-based solution, if you find a pad that is produced using cotton that has less impacts possible, today we have a lot of eco-design in the agricultural production. We can reduce a lot the production of the pad, and also reduce then the impact, the overall impact of the solution. But of course, it's still the reusable pad over the year remains less impactant in the scenario that we are analyzing today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
I see that her hand is
Yes.
raised.
Yes, please.
Nelson, I think.
Nelson, yes, please, Nelson. I don't know if
We can't hear you. I don't know if you...
Nelson, you're muted.
yes. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe write in the chat or at the end if you want.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're going to continue. We're almost at the end, so anyway, we're going to ask for questions soon.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So the Bio4HUMAN project, the idea was to evaluate the impacts of end of life of the humanitarian aid and to see what were the hotspots and how could bio-based solutions tackle these environmental impacts. So we have seen that the end of life is indeed one of the main source of environmental impacts throughout the life cycle of humanitarian aid, and it directly impacts the communities that are given help to. So what we've seen from our LCA is that the bio-based solutions were not always an overall gain in terms of environmental impacts because we had low on battery now. Okay. Because we had high impacts maybe at the production stage, but at the end of life stage, when it's the biodegradable, it could really reduce the local impacts. So that's our conclusion from the life cycle assessments that we have done. And so we want to thank you with Carolina for participating, and mostly we want also to see if you have any questions, remarks, if you see, if you have, anything to say or to add regarding this webinar. Thank you.
I saw there is already one question. Which one do you suggest is cost-effective, reusable or non-reusable sanitary pads? So regarding the life cycle costing, which is another part of the project, we have also added this information in the deliverable of work package 6 that is in construction. So you have this information soon. We can also maybe provide information with Alexandra when the deliverable will be available in the website.
Yes.
But yes, this part is really related to the environmental impacts. So Ajak asks, what is the way forward after this webinar? I don't know, Alexandra, if you if you have some answers.
I don't know if all the partners saw the one-pager that I sent with the invitation, but we are planning 2 more webinars where WeLOOP will present some more information about the project. We will also want to introduce the technologies that we identified in the project. So this will probably take place in February, I believe, because we know that all partners on the ground are very busy with deadlines right now. And then the third part will take some time in spring, right? So like from March onwards.
Yes, we need to take a look with the dates and availabilities, but yes, as soon as it's fixed, we will share the information, I think, with the other colleagues. Perfect. I have another question. Is the data collection and monitoring still ongoing? The data collection for LCA is finished, as we have already submitted all the 3 deliverables for the life cycle assessment. If you are interested in this data, you can go directly also in the Bio4HUMAN website where all the deliverables are available. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can come back to us also regarding this this point. Another question is, considering that the Bio4HUMAN project runs from 2024 to mid-2026, which is a relatively short time frame, yes. How does the project plan to ensure long-term sustainability and continuity of its interventions in South Sudan after the project ends? Actually, the main milestone of this project is this police framework roadmap that we are organizing. I don't know if Andrea, maybe it's the coordinator, can say something, and also from the Alexandra side, if she wants to say something.
Yeah, I can take this. Thank you. And then Alexandra, if you want to join
No, jump in, Nadia.
yeah.
Of course.
So from the project side, this Alexandra was saying in the beginning of the webinar, the core purpose of the project was to really find out if the bio-based solutions can even fit the humanitarian pipeline when we are looking at the solid waste management, because it's quite, I would say, not well, I would say, established and explored within the humanitarian settings if the bio-based solution can be applicable. So our project was like the first cornerstone or building stone when it comes to EU looking at the fact that, okay, can we put the bio-based solution and bio-based technologies into the deployment? So the core output of this research project is the fact to give the recommendations for the policymakers in your countries if this could be a good fit to put into the pipeline when looking at the waste management. Then together with the humanitarian sector, kind of to speak more about the solutions and to consider if they can be put into the humanitarian pipeline, to the procurement, to the logistics, to the waste management, and so on. And also, what is important for us to kind of get this information out for the bioeconomy sector in Europe, but also I would say worldwide, that hey, there is a humanitarian sector and the humanitarian settings where bio-based solutions can be applied. So maybe if you haven't looked there, start also looking at the humanitarian sector. And I know a lot of humanitarian organizations across Africa. I believe a lot of you maybe also here in the webinar are slow putting some of these solutions into the pipeline. We wanted to present today several products and several materials which we as a project saw as a fit, but within our project budget, it's a quite a small project. So what we can do is we can really share this information, showcase how it can be done through the next steps of like the future funding. So our biggest output of the project is to really create a roadmap how to get these solutions into the pipeline, to really how to make it applicable. And we hope that also we will have opportunity as a team to take it forward through especially the humanitarian organizations like it's Polish Humanitarian Action, and also maybe with some of you. In the next webinar, for example, we will talk about the black soldier fly, like a waste management technology that maybe some of you already know. I know that this is something that is indeed in the pipeline, and there are a lot of like smaller funding scheme that already support this solution, but maybe it's not yet that well talked about. And we really looked at it, life cycle assessment, at the life cycle costing. Is it really worth to put it into the humanitarian pipeline? And I think our partners from Polish Humanitarian Action kind of see that it already is. I know that one of your colleagues already mentioned that this is something that that you are starting to implement some small projects within this regard. So we are that cornerstone that I really hope that it will open more floors, because at least when I say it from some European project coordinator, this is the first time that we are looking at such a topic, working by economy sector together with the humanitarian organization under the research funding. So also a big learning curve for us, and I would like to really happy to get in touch with you. And I see some of you already put some emails, so we will definitely be in touch. And Alexandra, if you want to add something from Polish Humanitarian Action, please go ahead.
I think what you mentioned about the implementation was really a good learning experience for us, because we also gained a lot of knowledge from this project that we can use in further projects. And that's also one of the goals for the humanitarian actors, to be able to gain knowledge from our findings. That's one of the goals and objectives. The findings that we will analyze will be shared on the website as well, as I understood. So it's one of the goals for the partners, not only those in the consortium, but the humanitarian actors globally, especially in the East Africa that we are working in, to also gather the knowledge and explore the solutions for the future. And I believe it's really great project, even though it's just research for now. I know that it will give us some good lessons for the future, honestly.
I think we have some question also with raised hand, so maybe we can take them.
Yes, I saw that Nelson that asked the question regarding the concerns of sanitary pads. How did project response to such concerns? Which one? Maybe Nelson, did you had access to your mic? Maybe you can explain a little bit more your question. Not quite sure. No, it's still some issues. I don't know if
Yeah, I don't know what
Which concerns
we talk about. Maybe in the meantime we can see the other questions.
So I
There's
saw
one,
that.
another person has a raised hand, so maybe we can take that. Vukoni, please go ahead.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear, but it's quite
Yes,
low.
Alexandra.
quiet.
This is yes. I'm calling from. This is Michael. I'm only interested in the bio waste management, in the solid waste management. How do we partner? Because we have seen. I like your research, and the finding is quite good. But I'm looking at the professional management of the solid waste management in South Sudan. Is there any way we can work bilaterally from here? Can I pick up with an email and we give some of the proposal, and we see how we can work with it? Because I know GIZ already have some funding model for that. So probably if maybe we can partner with you to scale up the intervention of bio waste management.
So for the solid waste management, we have a presentation of the technologies that we have identified in the project for the next webinar. However, regarding incentives and this kind of investment, I'm not quite sure that we have this information. I don't know if PIN and PA have this information to give to other colleagues, but we are really assessing the technology and trying to identify and see how, in the environmental point of view, it could help. But we are not in directly contact with the investments that could be achieved.
Yeah, I think like our the context will be more understood after the next presentation. I believe it was also for me when I joined the project, to be honest. And these technologies that we have are really great, and we started exploring implementation with them as well. So I'd say we can keep that as the invitation for the next presentation to have a little surprise maybe for the partners to understand these technologies that we are exploring. I hope that's fine for now, Vukoni.
We have another question regarding.
Yes, please.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that
Thank
was-
you. Thank you.
Can I come in?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I think my colleague has already said one of the points that I wanted to raise, but however, let me start by saying that thank you so much for the insightful presentation and on the biodata on the Bio4HUMAN project, which is clearly well thought and quite relevant to the context of South Sudan. However, I feel the content is so quite rich and detailed, and it feels like it could require some 2 to 3 days to discuss fully and unpack and engage with all the issues that are raised. You know, the timing is a bit short, and we are all in rush. So I'll believe next time I think should be for 2 to 3 days, and we can discuss plenty. Maybe the other question that I could put is, given the weak underdeveloped solid waste management system in many parts of South Sudan, how does the project plan to ensure that a bio-based solution can function effectively without reliable waste collection and treatment infrastructure that we have in the place? For example, I think we are quite aware of the scenario of the situation in Juba, that the infrastructures are lacking, and such projects are really very, very important if we are to ensure that there's proper waste management in the country. And I think, like what my colleague said, involving a local actors and sharing some of these opinions could be great moving forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, but I think there is a work in progress now is more related to the feasibility study.
Yes.
So to see if the solutions are really feasible in the case studies in the countries of study. And I think will be more answered in this part of the project.
Yes.
We have also analyzed the costs of implementation of some of them, but and the cost of procurement. But I think the feasibility study will be the most important one to see if we
Yes.
can. It's also related, for example, here we have a question also regarding this realistic of the not recycling of PLA or even the end of life of some solutions. Mainly we identify the challenges that we can have in each end of life solution and how to tackle it, but it's quite difficult to see in real in the case study in the country if it will be feasible or not. And this is more a part that is working with the humanitarian aid to see if there is a feasibility or not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can add on that.
Yes.
As PAH, we are currently working on this feasibility report. We are conducting all of the data that we gathered both in South Sudan and in DRC. And maybe just for our partners to know, like we interviewed many stakeholders, both humanitarian actors, local authorities, community, businesses. So we really talked to different groups of people to understand their point of view because they are all stakeholders in the waste management in humanitarian sector. So we considered that, of course, and honestly, some of the findings were very surprising to us. So we believe that that was the best approach, honestly, because of course we all have some assumptions as humanitarians. We believe that it works this way or another way, but then for the months of interviews and talks with the stakeholders, we understood the context much deeper. And somebody asked in the chat, so we can also answer to that. The research was done in South Sudan and in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we had two countries in the region where we talked to the stakeholders. I hope that explains it.
I'm seeing the questions, but it's more regarding the documents and the contact with Bio4HUMAN. I saw that Andrea has already answered and Abby too. So trying to see if there is another difficult. So there is one last question. Maybe this one could be answered by you, Alexander, because what do you think of waste management situation in Juba, South Sudan? This is maybe
yeah, not in our scope.
No. I don't know if I can help you in the answer. We collect some data, but in the real situation.
Yeah. So like when it comes to the data, we are still compiling it and we will share with the partners. But of course, we are aware of the difficulties that we experience in Juba. I myself also visit Juba, so that it's clear to the partners. And the research that we've done in South Sudan was mostly in Juba, but also in Yei. And it was conducted by our local staff who know the context the best and has lived in Juba most or all of their lives. So that was also very important to us that we get the context also from our staff because like that's the best approach to also localize this research. But I don't really know what to add because we are all aware of the difficulties that we experience in Juba and in all of South Sudan. Juba, especially because it's a big city with big needs and not enough resources. So we are trying to identify how we can mitigate this and how we can support and how humanitarian actors can be more maybe responsible for the waste management that they produce as well.
So we have, I hope it answered your question. I have one last question. It's regarding the PLA. Does PLA entirely reduce dependence on fossil fuels compared to conventional plastics? My answer would be there is no miracle solution. PLA cannot replace everything. So today there is a lot that PLA can replace. But we know that, for example, some mechanical characteristics, due to some mechanical characteristics, PLA cannot replace all the packagings that we analyzed. There are also other bio-based plastics that are coming into industrial level. So we have to keep in mind that this bio-based sector is evolving very fast and can help us also to identify other solutions in the future to replace these conventional plastics. But today, I'm sorry, but PLA is not will not reduce completely the dependence on fossil fuels. And even in the production, if in the production side we are still using electricity and heat from fossil-based sources, we are still keeping this dependence. So it's quite.
Also, if I may add, when we produce PLA, we need energy, as I've said. So if this energy relies itself on fossil fuels, well, then we still have some of fossil fuel dependency, but it's less important, but still there is one. Yeah, it was just to add.
Yeah. Perfect. I don't know if I think we have finished the questions. So we want to thank you very much for your attendance and the questions, very interesting. Alexander will send you after this webinar the link of the recording and also the presentation as soon as we get it. And keep in touch for the second stereo webinar. And we hope to see you the next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And thank you, WeLOOP team, for the presentation.
Thank you. Welcome.
Bye.
I will stop the recording.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.